So, what if a movie wasn't just a story you watch from beginning to end? What if it was actually a living, breathing thing? A perfectly built machine that literally creates and consumes its own meaning. Today, we're going to unpack a pretty radical framework that sees filmmaking not as a product, but as this self-contained, almost biological system.
Here's the big idea, right? A film isn't some straight line that goes from point A to point B. No, it's a recursive loop, a self-referential system. You got to think of it more like a living organism, which is perfectly captured by that ancient symbol of the Ouroboros. You know, the snake eating its own tail.
You've probably seen the Ouroboros before. It's this super powerful symbol of a serpent, or sometimes a dragon, swallowing its own tail. And it represents this incredible idea of a closed loop, where the end is what gives the beginning its true meaning. That image right there, that's the key to understanding this whole thing.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to dive into what a serpent-shaped movie even is. Then, we'll map out the universe of a film and look at the secret roles the crew plays. After that, we'll bust the myth of linearity in filmmaking, and finally, we'll uncover the engine that actually powers all of the drama.
All right, let's jump right in with our first big concept, the serpent-shaped movie. This is really the foundation for everything else. This idea that a film is a closed system, one that generates and then consumes its own narrative energy.
This is all built on something called the conservation of narrative energy. The easiest way to think about it is to imagine a movie as a sealed snow globe, right? Nothing new gets in, nothing important gets out. Every single element that's introduced, a character, a prop, a weird line of dialogue, it all carries energy that has to be transformed. If it's not, the whole system springs a leak.
And the classic example of this, of course, is Chekhov's gun. You know the rule. If you show a gun in Act 1, you are pumping a massive amount of potential energy into the story. So by Act 3, that energy has to go somewhere. The gun has to fire, turning potential into kinetic energy. Or, and this is just as important, the fact that it doesn't fire has to create its own huge tension. If it's just forgotten, well, that's what we call a plot hole, a leak in the Ouroboros.
Which brings up a really cool point about plot twists. Think about your absolute favorite twist for a second. Was it just a neat surprise at the end? Or did it do something more? Did it actually rewrite the entire movie that came before it, sending a shockwave backwards through the whole film?
This is what the framework calls the recursive ripple. And you can't talk about this without talking about the sixth sense. That final twist, man, it doesn't just wrap up the story. It sends a ripple all the way back to the very first scene, and it completely recontextualizes every single thing you just watched. The film literally eats its own tail. It creates a brand new experience on the second viewing, proving that in a perfect loop, the end is what truly informs the beginning.
So, if a film is this self-contained system, this little universe, what are the forces that actually govern it? Well, that brings us to our next section, mapping the cinematic universe. The idea here is that every single film is defined by three fundamental tensions. The first one is this constant tug-of-war between unity and multiplicity. So unity is the director's single guiding vision, right? The idea that one mind is shaping the whole thing. But multiplicity is the reality of hundreds of crew members, each focusing on their own little atomic task. Both are absolutely essential.
Next up is the battle between the static and the dynamic. The static is your blueprint. It's the script, the 3-act structure, those carefully planned camera shots. It's the law. But then, the dynamic force just crashes in. An actor gives a performance nobody saw coming. A line gets improvised. A happy accident on set creates a moment of pure magic. It's this incredible tension between the fixed plan and the messy, living process of creation.
And finally, we have the crucial duality of the known versus the unknown. The known is everything you can explicitly see and hear inside the frame. But the unknown, that's where the real power is. It's the space just off screen, the unspoken subtext, the sound you hear from another room. I mean, just think about the shark in Jaws. The most terrifying monster is always the one you don't fully see, because it's powered by the most potent force there is, your own imagination.
Okay, so how do all of these abstract forces actually show up on a real film set? Well, that brings us to the crew's secret roles. The framework says we should look past the job titles on the call sheet and instead focus on the essential function that each person serves within this whole system. So this table recategorizes everyone by their core function. You've got the autonomous archetype. Think of a method actor who generates their own energy from within. Then there's the relational archetype, like an editor, whose whole job is to create meaning between things. The systemic archetype provides the structure and rules, like the screenplay or a producer. And finally, the adaptive archetype, like a first AD, is there to maintain balance and just keep the whole show on the road.
All right, this next idea is a big one, because it tackles a huge misunderstanding about how movies are actually made. Let's talk about the myth of linearity, and why filmmaking is absolutely nothing like a factory assembly line.
We're all taught to think of it like this, right? A nice, clean, three-step process. You plan the movie, you shoot the movie, you finish the movie. Simple, logical, linear. But according to the Ouroboros framework, this is just completely wrong.
The reality is actually a daily feedback loop. You go out, you shoot new material, but then at the end of the day, you watch the dailies, the footage you just shot, and that feedback immediately informs what you're going to shoot the very next day. The past is constantly shaping the present in this tight recursive cycle. See? It's not a line, it's a spiral.
So what is it that powers this entire system? What fuels the serpent's endless chase? Our final section gets right to the heart of it. Drama's engine and the unbelievable power of paradox.
Here it is, plain and simple. Conflict, contradiction, paradox, these aren't problems that a story needs to solve, they are the engine. A story without a central paradox at its core has no energy. It's just a sequence of events. It's a lecture, not a movie.
I mean, just look at one of the greatest characters in film history, Michael Corleone. He's driven by two desires that absolutely cannot coexist. He desperately wants to make his family legitimate and respectable, but his intense loyalty demands that he commit violence to protect them. The entire Godfather saga is powered by that impossible tension. That paradox is the story.
And when a film's structure, its performances, and its central paradox all align perfectly, the framework calls this moment the radiant chomp. It's that instant the serpent bites its own tail, completing the loop and finally achieving its one singular truth.
So the next time you watch a film, ask yourself this: is this just a straight line of events that you're going to forget tomorrow? Or is it a perfect loop, a serpent eating its own tail, an experience that's going to rewrite itself in your mind long after the credits have rolled?